Sam Rinzel shines while Kevin Korchinski's struggles continue as the Blackhawks get blanked by the Pens.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Quick favor, right off the rip, please go and hit that like button for me. Hop in the comment section below as well. Mailbag Monday is quickly creeping up. Make sure to hit me with your Blackhawks-related questions. And subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you haven't already. Even if you're someone who regularly tunes in through an audio platform, make sure to hop on over to YouTube and smash that subscribe button for me. It's 100% free, will not cost you anything, and helps me out in a real massive way in growing the show. But happy Wednesday, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Brutal 5-0 shutout loss for the Hawks last night out in Pittsburgh. They had an opportunity to pick up a quick 2-game season series sweep over the Penguins after a much-needed 3-1 win at the United Center on Sunday to put an end to their 5-game losing skid. But a real ugly performance last night at PPG Paints Arena, in particular, over the final 40 minutes. First period was actually fine, and Sam Rinzel, especially, as I'll get into more here in just a second. Don't worry, Blackhawks fans. Lots of conversation coming up about Sam Rinzel in his sharp performance, but in the first period, especially, he had a couple of grade A opportunities for his first NHL goal. Gotta feel like that's coming sooner rather than later, probably before the regular season comes to a close here. But after the Blackhawks gave up a power play goal to Sidney Crosby with just 15 seconds left in the first period, a goal, by the way, that was electric, one that I feel like only Sidney Crosby can score, as he wasn't even looking at the net when he got the shot on cage. But after surrendering that goal to Sidney Crosby, the Hawks just did not look like the same team the rest of the night. And the second period was truly one of the worst periods I've seen from this team in a while. And I've talked on the show about how, despite, the losses still continuing to pile up here this late in the season, there haven't been, in my opinion at least, nearly as many, lopsided outings or truly horrendous performances. Of course, with this team being one of the worst in the league, you're still getting those sprinkled in every now and again, but they haven't been happening as frequently, again, in my opinion. But that's exactly what we got in the second period last night. A ton of puck watching and puck chasing out of the Hawks. No structure in the defensive zone, like 2.5 minute shifts for a couple of the lines and a couple of the defensive pairings. And then even when the Blackhawks did get the puck, the passing, which I know has been a problem all year long, but it might have been the worst passing I've seen from an NHL team all season. Like, it was hot garbage. The Hawks only wound up with 4 shots on goal in the second period up until they had their first power play opportunity of the night with 2 minutes left to go. But even though they only surrendered 1 goal in that second period to Erik Karlsson, who, by the way, congratulations to EK65 for his 200th career NHL tally, they were still only down 2-0 going into the third. It wasn't like a unclawbackable deficit that they were facing, but they had just lost all momentum that they had established with a pretty strong road period to begin the game. They had lost all the juice going into the third, and I wasn't surprised to see things continue to trend in the wrong direction for them in that final period as the Pens added on 3 more goals for good measure. I'll say the Hawks, had some chances in those final 10 minutes to break up the shutout, but it was far too little too late at that point in time. Believe it or not, only the second time this season that the Blackhawks have been shut out. That's the good news, I guess. But the bad news is they've now dropped 13 of 15 games dating back to March 8th. And this outing was so horrendous, the Blackhawks actually held a team meeting following this one. Even though there's only 4 games left in the season, I'm sure there's some people out there thinking, well, what the heck is the point of this team meeting? I will say, with the amount of youngsters that they have in the locker room right now and a part of this group, I think it's really crucial to reiterate to them again that these types of efforts and these types of performances are not okay. You have to bring your A game in this league night in, night out, or you're going to get waxed just like they did. So while it might seem pointless, and it still might wind up being pointless at this point of the season, I do like that at least there's still accountability going on in that room. I feel like it's more so probably coming from a veteran guy like Nick Foligno, who's probably so sick of being on the wrong side of the final outcome, and seeing the team, put up a performance like this has to be just so frustrating for him at this stage of his career. Like, it's tough for me to watch that second period. I'm sure it's been real tough for Nick Foligno, a guy who's played at the highest level, to watch like junior level passing going on from this Blackhawks squad. Tough night for the Hawks out in Pittsburgh. On the bright side, Blackhawks fans, Sam Rinzel was really sharp despite the rest of the team not being sharp. It was probably his best NHL game so far, in my opinion, as he led the Blackhawks in the game score impact card. Also led the team with 22 minutes and 3 seconds of time on ice, again, in just his 5th NHL contest. And he doesn't look out of place. He doesn't look like the role is too much for him to handle right here, right now. And again, I've talked about this a couple of times already through his first 4 games, but what continues to be just the most noticeable thing to me about Sam Rinzel is how active he can be in the offensive zone, and how much ground his skating ability and his stride length just allows him to cover. Like, when there's a loose puck and he sees open ice, he can go and take advantage of that in a hurry. And he just gives himself so many chances in the offensive zone and recognizes when there's an opportunity available for himself. A couple of real good A-plus opportunities for him, as I mentioned, to get that first NHL goal. It's coming here soon for Sammy Rinzel if he keeps playing like this. The analytics, though, were phenomenal for Rinzel as well. 17-10 advantage for the Blackhawks in shot attempts with Rinzel on the ice. 7-5 shots on goal. 11-6, the team led in scoring chances with Rinzel out there, and also led 4-1 in high danger chances. And Rinzel himself had a team best 72.57 expected goals for percentage at even strength on the night. Had 5 shot attempts, now has 5 in all 5 NHL games, and 2 individual scoring chances as well. Does not look like a kid who was just playing college hockey a couple of weeks ago. He already fits right into the NHL. I think he does a really good job of utilizing his long reach and has a really good active stick. I think that's done him some good things in the neutral zone and breaking up plays in the defensive zone as well. And I think with that big 6-foot frame of his, as he continues to add some meat to the bone and get stronger, which is going to be a process for him, right? Still a young lad. It's probably going to take, 3, 4, 5 years until he's fully built out like a grown man. But with his skating ability and his size and his reach, once that happens, he is going to become a unit and a lot to deal with in all facets of the game. Couple of real sharp performances from Sam Rinzel immediately out of Minnesota. I thought it was his best game in the NHL last night in Pittsburgh, despite the rest of the team looking pretty awful. Let me know in the comment section below if you thought it was Rinzel's best performance in the NHL so far as well. While Rinzel shined last night for the Hawks, Kevin Korchinski did not, as his struggles unfortunately continue. He did, in fact, wind up staying in the lineup. Ethan Del Mastro was healthy scratched once again. In my preview episode that I dropped yesterday morning, I mentioned that while it was likely the Hawks were going to go with the same lineup again because they were coming off of a win, it wouldn't be crazy to see Del Mastro hop in for Korchinski, as he didn't really have a couple of good games over the weekend. He wound up staying in there, but did not get off to a good start in the opening 20 minutes. Took 2 penalties in that first period, although one was absolute horse scrap. And of course, that's when Sidney Crosby went on to score his power play goal. But he also got beat inside by Kevin Hayes, his second goal of the game that made it 5-0 Penguins there in the third period. And I think just, again, the areas where he has to be a grown man and be tough and be physical, that's where he's really struggling the most. Analytics weren't very good for KK last night either, as the Blackhawks were outshot 5-8 with him, or 8-5, I guess you could say, with him on the ice. Shot attempts were also 17-9 in favor of the Penguins, 11-3 in scoring chances, 5-2 in high danger chances. Lopsided stats for Kevin Korchinski. He also had no shot attempts, 0 scoring chances on the night, still doesn't have a point. It's been tough sledding for him, but again, we gotta stay patient before we make any kind of, I don't want to say knee-jerk reactions, but any assumptions in terms of Kevin Korchinski's long-term future. And to be fair, it wasn't a very good night for, the Blackhawks' entire squad. Even a veteran like Teuvo Teravainen had a real bad turnover, leading to Erik Karlsson's goal in the second period. Artem Levshinov had a bad pinch, leading to Kevin Hayes' first goal. Oliver Moore had a breakdown leading to Chris Letang's goal. Like, rookie mistakes are going to happen, and I don't want to just point out Korchinski here in particular, but it's kind of been a thing that's happened to him on a nightly basis whenever he's been in the lineup during his most recent stint, and I don't know what seems to be precisely the issue for him, but in his first stint when he played 11 games, I think it was either 11 or 9, I can't remember, during his first stint earlier in the season, he just looked a lot more confident in himself. And some of the passes that he made last night, like the breakout passes or the D-to-D passes, they lack crispness. They lack speed. He's not making hard passes. Like, he just looks a little bit out of sorts right now. And it's unfortunate to see, but again, I'm not going to make any rash judgments on Kevin Korchinski because he's still a young lad, still one of the youngest defensemen in the NHL. But when you see Artie Levshinov and Sam Rinzel being able to handle this level right off the jump, they are bigger defensemen, and that's something to keep in mind here. It does leave you a little bit more frustrated and a little bit concerned about KK. I think he's just going to need some more development in Rockford before becoming a full-time NHLer, and that's not the worst thing in the entire world. Before I jump into segment 2, Blackhawks fans, do want to give a shout-out to Frank Nazar because outside of Sam Rinzel, I thought he was one of the few Blackhawks who brought it last night, and he just continues to create so many chances for himself. And also, one thing I haven't given him, I think, enough credit for on the podcast is the amount of penalties that he draws because of his determination, the chip that he plays with on his shoulder, the edge, the motor. He's not afraid to mix it up in the dirty areas, battle for one-on-one pucks. He just does such a good job of mixing it up and not letting his size keep him away from those spots on the ice. Draws a lot of penalties, creates a lot of opportunities for himself because of his speed as well. And that hustle is just evident basically every single night. He was second on the team with a 67.64 expected goals for percentage at even strength last night, behind only Sam Rinzel. Those are the two only bright spots, I think, for the Blackhawks as they were shut out 5-0 in an ugly performance to the Pittsburgh Penguins last night. But there are my full thoughts on the matter. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll dive into the Tankathon Standings and talk about the battle between the Hawks and Sharks for the best odds at the number 1 overall pick. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all first about Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, then go and crack into a great source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, with each 1-ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily nutritional value. Plus, they're packed with fiber to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And who doesn't love a good pistachio? I know I certainly do. I literally could sit there eating them and cracking them all day long. And the satisfying crack of opening each shell, it's almost like a snack meditation. So whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids at school, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch by visiting wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Again, that's wonderfulpistachios.com in order to check it out today. Segment 2, as we are now down to the final 4 games of the 24-25 regular season for the Hawks, I figure it's a good time to get into an updated look at the Tankathon Standings to see the battle for the best odds for the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 draft. Of course, it's a 2-horse race at this point in time between the Hawks and the Sharks. The Hawks have officially clinched either the first or the second best odds at the number 1 overall pick following last night's losses. They are 10 points back of the Nashville Predators and only have 4 games left on the schedule, meaning they can only accumulate 8 more points. So it's down to the Sharks and the Hawks as to who's going to have that 25.5% chance at number 1. San Jose, still though, Blackhawks fans, is firmly in the driver's seat. They have a 20-47-10 record through 77 games so far this season, so they do still have 5 games left on the schedule, but they only have 50 points, giving them a .325 points percentage. The Blackhawks have 54 points with a .34 points percentage, as they're now 22-46-10 after last night's loss through 78 games. Should they finish in this second spot, second to last in the NHL standings, aka, that would give them a 13.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. Taking a look at the Blackhawks schedule for these final 4 games, they return to action tomorrow night on the road in Boston, facing off with the Bruins, who are actually right here at the bottom of the standings as well, believe it or not. It's been a long time since we've seen Boston in this conversation. Then the Hawks will play their final game of the season at the United Center on Saturday when they take on the Winnipeg Jets at 6 p.m. Central Time, and then they'll close out the season on the road north of the border in Montreal next Monday, and then have a back-to-back for their final regular season contest against the Ottawa Senators on Tuesday. So 3 road games for the Blackhawks, 1 home game on Saturday against Winnipeg. For the San Jose Sharks, they're actually in action here tonight. So after this evening, both teams will have only 4 games left in the season. The Sharks are up in Minnesota squaring off with the Wild this evening. Then they'll return to action on Friday on the road in Edmonton. They'll play the Calgary Flames on Sunday in Calgary, and then they'll play the Montreal Canadiens on the back end of a back-to-back to close out their Canadian road trip on Monday. Their final game of the regular season comes on Wednesday at home against the Edmonton Oilers. That will be one day after the Chicago Blackhawks wrap up their season. So could be a meaningful game. Likely will not be, though, if I had to guess, because the scenarios for the Hawks to get the number 1 overall pick, not all that good of odds, I would say. What needs to happen for the Blackhawks to wind up with that 25.5% chance is they need to lose out, and the Sharks would need to go 2-2-1 over their last 5 games in order to reach 55 points. Or let's say the Hawks win just 1 of their final 3 games, which losing all 4 is definitely in the cards, but I think going 1-3 is probably the most likely outcome for the Hawks. Let's say that does happen. Then the Sharks would have to go 3-0-1 or better. They'd have to do that or win each of their final 4 games. 3-1-1. They'd have to go 3-1-1 or better. I knew that math wasn't mathing right there. They'd have to go 3-1-1 or better over their last 5 games in order for the Hawks to wind up at the number 1 spot in the lottery. Of course, we don't know how these ping pong balls are going to bounce, but seems unlikely that that's going to wind up being the case. I don't think the Sharks are going to go on this hot streak to close out the season, but crazier things have happened. I'll make sure to keep all of you updated on the battle between the Blackhawks and Sharks down the stretch here for the best odds at the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. The rest of the top 10 in the Tankathon standings right now, just to keep you all updated on how it's looking, the Nashville Predators comfy in the 3rd spot right now with a 28-42-8 record through 78 games, giving them 64 points. 410 points percentage, they have an 11.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. Should they finish in this 3 spot, as I expect them to do, after Nashville, it's a little bit bunched up there. The Flyers currently have the 4th best odds at the number 1 overall pick, as they are 31-37-9 through 77 games with 71 points and a .461 points percentage. The 4th spot has a 9.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. Then, as I mentioned, the Boston Bruins in the conversation for number 1 still. Not the most likely odds, obviously, but they're number 5 with a 32-38-9 record through 79 games, giving them 73 points and a .462 points percentage. If they wind up finishing at number 5, they'll have an 8.5% chance at the top selection. The Seattle Kraken then are next at number 6. They're 34-39-6, also through 79 games. So they and the Bruins only have 3 games left on the schedule. That gives them 74 points and a 7.5% chance currently at the number 1 overall pick. The Pittsburgh Penguins are at number 7, although they've only played they've already played 79 games. They have 76 points in 79 games. The 7 spot has a 6.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. I think Pittsburgh is going to be comfortably inside the top 7, though, because Anaheim and Buffalo, while they do have the same amount of points as Pittsburgh, they each have 2 more games to play. The Pens only have 3 left on the schedule, whereas the Ducks and the Sabres each have 5. Both those teams have 76 points in 77 games as of right now. However, Anaheim has fewer regulation and overtime wins, putting them in the 8th spot, which would give them a 6.0% chance at the number 1 overall pick if the season ended today. And then the Buffalo Sabres currently have a 5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. 2-horse race at the top, kind of jumbled up from there on out. We'll see how the Tankathon standings finish as we're into the final week of the NHL regular season. Can't believe we're already here. Coming up in just a moment, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's show, still got to talk about Ivan Demidov inking his entry-level contract with the Montreal Canadiens.
Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you're not alone. That used to be me, lacking rest, tossing and turning. I was late for meetings. I never felt like myself. That's until I found Bare Mattress. Bare Mattress and their sleep recovery technology helped me fall asleep faster, as well as enjoy deeper sleeps. I felt like myself again, and you can too. Bare Mattress knows that every sleeper is different. That's why they have their sleep quiz on their website that finds you your perfect match. As a side sleeper, I matched with the Elite Hybrid mattress, and I've been telling everyone in my life they have to try Bare Mattress risk-free. You can sleep on your Bare Mattress up to 120 nights, and if you're not getting the best sleep of your life, you can get it refunded. They'll pick it up with absolutely no hassle. So go to baremattress.com and use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's baremattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Baremattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to everyone who made Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Now, for your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage down the home stretch of the regular season from the coverage you love with Locked On. And you can easily find Locked On NHL right now on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, the Montreal Canadiens are closing in on clinching the final playoff spot out in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to have some more help on the way for their postseason push as 2024 5th overall pick Ivan Demidov officially signed his entry-level contract with the Habs yesterday, and Montreal is set to have another young gun joining Lane Hudson, Nick Suzuki, Yuri Slafkovsky, Cole Caulfield. It's a fun time to be a Montreal Canadiens fan, and quite honestly, I think that might be the what we're hoping is the next parallel for the Chicago Blackhawks, taking a young core, adding some more players alongside them, and hopefully getting back into the Stanley Cup playoffs sooner rather than later. But for Ivan Demidov, just want to provide a quick update on what's gone down for him in the KHL. An incredible U20 season for him, despite being put in kind of an odd situation and being utilized very peculiarly from time to time. He still tallied a team high 49 points, 19 goals, and 30 assists in 65 games as a 19-year-old, setting the U20 scoring record in the league, despite, like I said, being utilized oddly. He had, I actually read a really good article from the Daily Faceoff talking about how he had fluctuating ice time, wasn't always being utilized in the proper role necessarily, and that could have been because they knew he was leaving to go to the NHL. Russia, there's a lot of politics involved. They want their guys. They want to win now. So he wasn't handled necessarily the best. And from what I read, a lot of the scouts were really impressed with the maturity that Demidov showed in that situation, not really being outspoken or causing any rifts, just putting his head down, continuing to do the work, controlling the things that he can control, and going on to have a heck of a season. Like I said, setting the U20 scoring record as a 19-year-old with 49 points in 65 games. He actually played fewer than 10 minutes in 20 of those 65 games. So for him to still have the scoring output that he did in one of the top professional leagues in the entire world, I think goes to show you how special this kid is. And it rattles me, Blackhawks fans, that they still did not draft him with the second overall pick. They weren't the only one to make that mistake, however, and we'll see if it winds up being a mistake. Obviously, Artem Levshinov, as a 19-year-old, looks really solid in his first NHL stint. He's got 5 assists through his first 14 games, looked really solid, especially in the latter half of his first professional season down with the Rockford Ice Hogs, tallying 22 points, 5 goals, and 17 assists in 50 AHL games. But what I will say, Blackhawks fans, is being in the mix for the number 1 overall pick again this year. Let's say the Blackhawks go on to win that lottery, and it'll make them think a lot more about Matthew Schaefer, because should they wind up at number 2, I think he's very likely going off the board to the San Jose Sharks, should they be the ones to win the lottery, of course. If the Blackhawks win the lottery and have the chance to take Matthew Schaefer, if they win the lottery and have the chance to get Matthew Schaefer, they're going to be kicking themselves that they did not take Ivan Demidov because of the deep defensive prospect pool that they already possess. And that's really the frustration over the matter, right? It doesn't even have anything to do with Artem Levshinov. Like, he looks really solid in his own right, and it's going to be years until we truly know how Demidov's going to be as an NHLer and how Artem Levshinov is going to be as an NHLer. But it is frustrating considering there is that lack of a next high-end forward prospect alongside Connor Bedard. I love Frank Nazar, but he's still another undersized playmaker, and I still don't even know if he's necessarily going to ever have that point per game style upside. Ivan Demidov definitely has that potential. I know he has the wonky skating ability, but he makes it work for him, and honestly, it's pretty deceptive, or has been at the professional level, for defensemen to handle. He's got an incredible creativity, pulls off plays that very few guys are even willing to try, and that's why I thought he was going to be perfect alongside Connor Bedard. And of course, Blackhawks fans, because these are just the way things go, Demidov is set to make his NHL debut on Monday in the Bell Center against the Chicago Blackhawks because of course, Blackhawks fans. I know Montreal's super excited about Demidov joining this squad. He's probably the most notable NHL prospect joining a roster for a playoff push since Cale Makar with the Colorado Avalanche. I would go ahead and say, like, scouts absolutely rave about this kid. I just talked about how a lot of folks were impressed with the maturity that he showed this season. You got to love the production that he had as a 19-year-old in the KHL. I'm a little envious of the Montreal Canadiens getting him at the 5th overall pick, and the gosh darn Anaheim Ducks, if they just didn't take Beckett Seneca with the 3rd overall pick, they take Caden Lindstrom. The Blackhawks make that trade with Montreal at number 4. They come away with Artem Levshinov and Ivan Demidov. The things I would do for that to have happened. It's going to be interesting to see how the start of Ivan Demidov's NHL career goes. Looks like he'll get in a couple of regular season games before Montreal very likely winds up playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I believe they're just 2 points away from earning that final qualification spot, and it's going to be a long shot for the New York Rangers to overcome them at this point in time. Going to be interesting when Artem Levshinov goes head-to-head with Ivan Demidov on Monday night in Montreal. Definitely have that one circled, Blackhawks fans. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can find me on X at JackBushman2. Go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account, though, at Talkin' Hockey, so that you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Wednesdays. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.